Hey there, my friend. My name is Kelvin. Welcome to this episode of the Mark of the Beast and the Second Coming update. Now, if you're watching this video right now in 2023, in October, when I'm shooting this video, the world is about to break out into World War III, I believe, right? So, in this presentation, I'm going to lay out the reason why I believe we're about to head into World War III, why this Israel and Palestinian conflict is only the start of something greater, and how this all fits into Bible prophecy, or does it? Right? Does the Bible have anything to say about this World War III? And more importantly, how this relates to the second coming of Christ and what you should be doing about it right now? Because I believe these are signs of the time, right? This is the knocking on the door. This is the birth pains that tell us that Jesus is coming soon and we are very close to the end of probation and this world's history. And what we see right now happening, my friends, is signs that tells us that Jesus is coming again very, very soon, and it's time to get ready. So I'm going to lay out this presentation for you. The goal is to be done with this in less than 30 minutes. So I'm going to keep this on the short side, and there's not going to be any fluff. I'm going to show you a couple of videos at the end to kind of prove out the point and tell you why I'm convicted that this is only the beginning of greater issues that's about to happen. But I want to start off with this PowerPoint. So let me share my screen real quick, and we're gonna dive right into it. So again, this short presentation is about whether or not we're gonna go into World War III, which I believe we are. And again, I'm gonna present the reasons why I believe that to be the case. So as a way of summary, just wanted to lay out a couple of ground rules and define a couple of terms and lay out the way that I think you should be approaching this presentation, because my belief is that there's a lot of confusion out there, right? Babylon the Great, there's a lot of confusion. And the reason why there is confusion is because the devil, Satan, does not want you and I to know the truth. So what he does is he puts error out there, deliberately puts error out there in order to confuse minds. So my belief is that God's truth regarding end times events is clear, but the devil tries to muddy the water, especially when it comes to the idea of dispensationalism. Now, I'm going to define what that is in a second, right? Now, I believe also that world history is planned ahead of time by Satan, right? In certain events that he wants to happen, it's planned ahead of time, and then he executes it through his followers. All right, so I'm going to prove what I mean when it comes to that. Just take that, right? Then the Hegelian dialectic of thesis antithesis is always at play in human history. So this guy named Hegel, and I came across Hegel several years ago when I was doing my A levels back in the Caribbean and I studied European history. What you'll find is that in history, in human history, there's always a pattern, right? And in a book called The Philosophy of History, Hegel lays out that pattern in terms of saying this is how the powers that be, those who are behind the scenes, control and orchestrate human events. What they do is that they place a thesis, and then the opposite of that is the antithesis, which is the opposite idea or philosophy. For example, communism versus democracy, um, or socialism. And then you have these warring ideas or ideologies, right? And what the devil does is that he then, in order to bring out the desired result that he wants, which is called a synthesis, he will bring these two ideas, these opposing ideas, to clash with one another. So that's the Hegelian dialectic at work, right? And this is how people are manipulated. This is how history is driven by the powers that be. You put one idea versus the other idea, and all the while, what you want is a third outcome, which is a desired result that you want in the first place. Hope that makes sense. And I'll explain in more detail. All right. Like I said, I want to keep this one short. And my fourth premise and conviction is that we are so close. We are near the end of human history, the end of probation, which means that Jesus is about to come. And I will put all of this into context and tell you exactly why and how this all fits together and why it's important, right? Especially when it comes to the mark of the beast crisis, because a lot of us are looking for that Sunday law and the mark of the beast crisis, but I believe there is something that has to happen first in order to make the mark of the beast crisis what it will be, which is a worldwide phenomena. All over the world, people will be clamoring and asking for it, because I believe what has to happen, and I'll lay it out right now, is that Satan, right, the devil, will counterfeit the coming of Christ. He will pretend to be Jesus. He will come as Christ, as a Messiah, as the one to save the world. Then he will tell people that yes, I have changed the Sabbath commandment, have changed the law of God, and now you should worship on a Sunday. You should keep Sunday holy, and then we can see the downstream effects of that is there's going to be a change of laws. The laws are going to be put in place to honor, to hallow, to legislate Sunday keeping, which is all part of the plan. Now, moving ahead, what is the Hegelian dialectic? As I mentioned before, that's an interpretive method. It's a philosophy of history, basically, in which the contradiction between a proposition, which is a thesis, and its antithesis is resolved at a higher level of truth called a synthesis. All right. Now, this is always at play. And I really wanted to bring this definition and help you understand this because the videos that I'm going to show you is a demonstration. It actually shows and proves out this theory that this is what's at work when it comes to human history and how things play out. So stick with me, right? I'm just laying down the foundation, giving you terms, defining our terms, and then we go into the meat of it and then the proof videos as well. All right. Now, dispensationalism is also important when it comes to the whole idea of what's happening in Israel right now. If you go to YouTube or you go anywhere on the internet, you see many pastors, many preachers. I'm going to stop sharing here. Many pastors, many preachers, many evangelicals all coming out and saying, yes, God's people, true people are Israel. Guys, that's also false, right? After the stoning of Stephen, after the Jews rejected the Messiah, they rejected Jesus, they are no longer God's chosen people. God's chosen people are spiritual Israelites, spiritual Jews, right? Or Hebrews, spiritual Israel. It's not based on your genetics or your race or where you come from. God's chosen people are those who accept Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. And they could be from the Jewish nations as well, right? They could be Jewish people in terms of a descendant. But your race, your ethnicity does not save you. It's about a personal relationship with Christ. So dispensationalism says, yes, God has a plan or a way he operates or deals with people in one dimension, in one aspect of time, in one linear aspect of time. But in another aspect, like for example, with the children of Israel, he also has another way of dealing with them. And that's not true. What we're saying and what I believe is that Jesus and God always deal with people based on their heart relationship with him, their love relationship with him. And that's how it's always been. In fact, why am I saying this, right? When you look at how God called Abraham, right? When God called Abraham, there was no such thing as a Jew. They were actually called the Hebrew people. So the Hebrew people of the Old Testament, the Hebrews, which later on became the Judeans, not Jews, the Judeans. That's a very important distinction because a lot of people think that the Jews are God's chosen people. No, it was the Hebrew people who later became Judeans, right? And then these people, as we know, as a nation, rejected Christ. But the people that we have in Israel today, and I want to say this, and I'm not being anti-Jew, anti-Semitic. I love Jewish people. I love all people. But what I'm saying is that if you look at history, if you do the research based on history, the people that live in Israel today are mainly from European countries, right, of Israeli descent, and they're cousins or cousins. So these people are actually from the different countries or different continents of Europe, mainly Turkey, different parts of Europe. If you do the research, you'll find that these are literally not the very same people that you find in the Old Testament or the Hebrews, because they were scattered all over the world, right? So what am I saying? What I'm saying is that what we see now in Israel is a deliberate setup where the British government and the powers that be reintegrated the people of Israel back into that territory in the Middle East, right? And reoccupied land that was occupied by the Palestinians. And here's a little side note for you. The Palestinians, right? If you look up the history of the word Palestine is modern day Philistine. These are the very same people, the Philistines, who were always at war with the Hebrew and the Judean people in the Old Testament. We know of the story of Samson and Goliath was a Philistine. The Philistines, right? The modern name for Philistine is Palestine. Interesting. All right, so let me go to a video and I want to show you something, and then this is going to be our base case. And I want to share with you and prove to you why I believe we're about to enter World War III. And as the video plays, trust me, you're going to be blown away. So let me share my screen and share this with you. All right, so we're going to start with this video here.
Confederate Army in American history. It is said that
So this video here he's got talking about a man named Albert Pike. Albert Pike is one of the most famous Freemasons in all of history. He was one of the founders of the KKK, a 33-degree Freemason. So just listen in and listen to what he says.
J.R. Church, welcome to today's analysis of the news. Albert Pike was one of the most colorful characters in American history. It is said that he was born on December 29, 1809 in Boston, was the eldest son of 6 children born to Benjamin and Sarah Andrew Pike. He studied at Harvard and later served as Brigadier General of the Confederate Army. After the Civil War, Pike was found guilty of treason and jailed, only to be pardoned by President Andrew Jackson on April 2, 1866, who met with him the next day at the White House. On June 20th, 1867, Scottish Rite officials conferred upon Johnson 32nd degree Freemasonry degrees. Pike was said to be a genius, able to read and write 16 languages. He was one of the founding fathers of the head of the ancient accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, being the Grand Commander of North America Freemasonry from 1859, and retained that position until his death in 1891. In 1869, he was the top leader of the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. Pike was said to be a Satanist who indulged in the occult, and he apparently possessed a bracelet which he used to summon Lucifer, with whom he had constant communication. He was the Grand Master of a Luciferian group known as the Order of the Palladium, or of Sovereign Council of Wisdom, it's also been called, which had been founded in Paris in 1737. Now, General Albert Pike was the only Confederate general with a statue on federal property in Washington, D.C. He was honored not as a commander or even as a lawyer, but as Southern Regional Leader of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. The statue stands on a pedestal near the foot of Capitol Hill between the Department of Labor building and the Municipal building between 3rd and 4th Streets on D Street Northwest. Now, I tell you all of this because it is said that he received a vision from his mentor, Mr. Lucifer, I guess, on August 15th, 1871. And William Guy Carr, former intelligence officer in the Royal Canadian Navy, wrote a book called Satan, Prince of this World, in which he gives this information. He said that he received this information from a book written by Cardinal Caro Rodriguez in Santiago, Chile, who wrote in 1925 a book called The Mystery of Freemasonry Unveiled.
All right, so I'm going to pause there because I just want to lay the foundation. Now, these books that he mentioned, I actually went and I found the books online, and then I started to read the books, especially the book by William Guy Carr, Satan, Prince of this World. And it's very fascinating because he delves into the philosophy and the ideologies behind Freemasonry and what they believe, which I'm not going to go into that too much because, for the sake of time. But what's interesting, and I want you to note, especially if you're a student of history, is that Pike wrote these letters to a guy named Mestini in the 1871, before World War I, before World War II, right? So he wrote those letters because he claimed he got a vision, he got a dream, and then Satan showed him the history of what's about to happen. And he wrote these letters, right? He wrote these things before any of the world wars happened in this world. So let's get back to it and let's listen to what he has to say.
And in this book, in 1925, it is said that he wrote a letter to a man named Mazzini in which he described this dream. And in the dream, he predicted 3 world wars. The First World War, he said, must be brought about, and I'm quoting from Albert Pike. The First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the czars in Russia and of making that country a fortress of atheistic communism. The divergences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the British and German empires will be used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken the religions. Now, students of history will know that Otto von Bismarck forged certain alliances between 1871 and 1898, which brought about this war, this World War I. And Otto von Bismarck here says that he was a co-conspirator with Albert Pike, and he was the one instrumental in bringing about the First World War. Well, that's the First World War. Then he dreams that there must be, he is given in this visionary dream, a Second World War. Now remember, this was in 1925 that it became public in this book written by a cardinal from Santiago, Chile, Rodriguez. He says, quote, "The Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so that Nazism is destroyed and that the political Zionism will be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would then be restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm." Well, there are some who may argue that the terms Nazism and Zionism were not known in 1871. You should remember, however, that the Illuminati invented both of these movements. In addition, communism as an ideology and as a coined phrase originates in France during the Revolution. In 1785, Restif coined the phrase 4 years before the Revolution broke out. Restif and Babeuf, in turn, were influenced by Rosé, as was the most famous conspirator of them all, Adam Weishaupt. Then he has this vision, in this vision, not only one world war and two world wars, but here comes the Third World War. He says, and I quote,
All right, guys, so I'm going to stop here because we've kind of watched a lot, but I really want to emphasize certain things, right? So World War One and World War II were predicted or prophesied, not prophesied, but predicted because he got a vision or a dream of what's about to happen. And I believe that they were planned and orchestrated by the Illuminati. And if you know your history and you know really who is behind the Illuminati, it's the Jesuits, right? So the Jesuits are in control, really. And we know that Jesuits really work for the papacy, right? This Roman Catholic system. And behind the scenes, and who gives the papacy its power? Satan, the dragon, right? According to Bible prophecy. So you have this chain of command. You have the devil, the dragon, gives his power to the papacy, right? This beast system in Revelation, right? The sea beast, Revelation chapter 13. Then the papacy has various organizations or institutions that work on its behalf, including the Jesuits. The Jesuits then set up the Illuminati. So this basically is the front or the different organizations that people see. But behind the scenes, ultimately, the Jesuits are in control, and the person pulling the string is really the devil, the dragon, right? But he's working for these various organizations. So what I want to emphasize here is that World War One was the Illuminati or these different special interest groups working against the communists, right? And then the end result was the communist system, communism weakening religion, right? Then World War II was then a reaction to that, where Nazism, like Nazi Germany, was going against the political Zionists or those who want to set up a state of Israel. Now, political Zionists basically describes the West, right? So Zionism is different from Judaism, right? Zionism is a political ideology that believes that Israel should be a sovereign state, right? So Zionism is a political movement geared towards setting up Israel as a independent nation, which is different from the religion of Judaism, right? And oftentimes those two clash because most people say that people who are Zionists, they're not very religious, so they're not really good Jews, right? Or they're not into the religion of Judaism. Let me rephrase that and be careful. I don't want YouTube taking on this video. So what happened as a result of World War II is the creation of the state of Israel. And now if you go do your research online and you just look at how exactly did Israel come to be as a power, you will see that it was done by the British government in addition to the UN and all of these powers standing behind Israel, but Israel then kind of reoccupied the land that Palestine or the Palestinians had. But there's a reason why, and we're getting to it, because the reason why this is done is because World War III is going to come out of this creation that which was done in World War II, right? So it's a step, it's a ladder. Everything's building upon each other. This is done on purpose in order to create the crisis, which will then bring about World War III. So let's listen to what World War III is going to be based upon.
The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. Yeah, that's what he says. The war, this was 1925. Please understand that. At least 1925. May go all the way back to 1871, as is purported to do, but at least it was written in a book and published in 1925. So he says, after World War I was just over a few years, and before World War II even started, he's now thinking about this Third World War, and it says that it will be caused by the differences between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, the State of Israel, mutually destroy each other. That's what it says. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economic exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm in which, in all its horror, will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin and savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil. So he's against Christianity and he's against atheism. They're supposed to fight each other to the death, you see. Then, he says, everywhere the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization and the multitude, disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowledge where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer. That's what he says. Brought finally out in the public view. So he's saying that Lucifer will finally make himself, the good guy. He's going to save the world from these atheists who don't believe in deity and from these Christians who believe in the good God. Well, so it says, this manifestation will result in the general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time.
All right, guys. So I'm going to stop here now. This guy kind of dropped a lot at you. Now, if you're hearing this for the first time, you may be like, what? Like, here's a case, right? Here's what's happening. And here's what the premise of this presentation and what I'm bringing forward to you. That Bible prophecy does not tell us of World War I, World War II, or World War III. I believe that. It doesn't describe any of the world wars. The Bible says there'll be wars and rumors of wars, right? But it doesn't describe who these warring nations are. It doesn't do that. But Albert Pike, who's a Satanist, a Luciferian, a Freemason, 33-degree Freemason, got a vision in which he was showed, because he, communicated directly to demonic forces, he was showed the world wars that needed to happen in order to prepare the world for Satan, in order to prepare the world for Luciferian worship. Now, here is a kicker. Are you ready for it? I believe that as many of the most famous theologians teach and believe, is that there's going to be a pretense of religion to destroy religion. So as the Bible says, that when Satan comes, he's going to present himself as an angel of light. So when the Luciferians, when Albert Pike is talking about the destruction of Christianity, He's not talking about the destruction of nominal Christianity or Christianity as we know it today. He's talking about the destruction of fundamental Christianity or true Bible-believing Christianity. That is what they want to destroy. But Satan, I believe, is going to come as this world healer, Maitreya, this savior. So for the Hindus, it's going to be that savior, that promised Messiah. For the Jew, it's going to be the promised Messiah. For the Christian, it's going to be the coming of Christ. He's going to be to each of the world's major religions, that coming, that savior that they've been all prophesied, that they've been prophesying about or teaching about to come and save them. Now, I want to show you a video that points to what's going to happen. This happened back in 1988 in Kenya, and I'm gonna share with you something that will blow you away. If you haven't seen this yet, trust me, buckle your seatbelt, is gonna blow you away, because I believe this is a precursor for what's gonna happen. So let's start this video at minute 2. Yep, minute 2:25, because basically it gives a foundation of these people in Kenya and this lady who has a ministry of healing. And then let's start it right here.
Which many newspapers and the TV station CNN reported.
Okay.
With 1980. Here, on June the 11th, 1988, an extraordinary event took place, which many newspapers and the TV station CNN reported. The people believed that Jesus Christ had personally appeared before them. A journalist from the magazine Kenya Times was an eyewitness. His report starts a week before the event.
On Saturday, June the 4th, 1988, a big bright star was sighted above the skies by worshippers.
While we were filming, the unusually bright star could also be seen during the day.
So just a quick commentary. Now remember, in the Bible it says, if it say to you that he's over there, or he's in the desert, or he's in this place, when Jesus said, if anyone comes to you and tell you that the Christ has appeared and he's over in this place or that place, do not go, because the Bible clearly teaches that when Jesus comes, right, every single person in this world will see him at the very same time. Everyone will see him. Everyone will know that he's come. So we don't need to be going around the world looking for Jesus or appearances of Jesus. So what that bright star was, what these people saw, was definitely not Jesus, but it gets more interesting.
During the healing session on June the 11th, 1988, the mysterious event took place, which was observed by hundreds of people. Many were left totally healed. Only a few photos exist.
All right, guys, so does this look like Jesus? So this being came and started healing people in Kenya, appeared and disappeared. Maitreya, if you've read the stories, you know that he's appeared in other parts of the world as well. But let's keep watching.
The tall figure of a barefooted, white-robed and bearded man appeared from nowhere and stood in the middle of the crowd.
Watu wote walianguka chini, wakajawa wengine na furaha, wengine wakajawa na kilio kwa maana wameona kila hawajaona tangu wazaliwe.
When he appeared, people had no idea what was happening. Many of them fell down. Others began to cry and repent their sins, and continued to do so even after Jesus had disappeared, and we had begun singing new healing songs again. Since that day, hordes of people have been coming to Kawangware, repenting their sins and being healed and saved. But it is not me who heals, it is the power of God that heals through me.
It appeared to them the Son of Man had at last fulfilled his promise of coming back to earth.
The unknown person, who didn't tell his name, turned first to Mary Akatsa.
umepewa kazi ya Mungu kutoka kwa
He
Mungu
said,
mwenyewe.
"You are an important messenger of God. Keep on preaching, never retreat. Whoever places obstacles in your path will himself be halted." Then the man spoke in Swahili without an accent to the crowd.
We are nearing the time for the rain of heaven. But before that, I shall come back and bring a bucketful of blessing for all of you.
All right, so I'm going to stop here because what's interesting is that this man, this person who appeared to them said, we're nearing the time for the rain of heaven, but before I come back, before that time, I'm going to come back again. Right, so this matriarch, this person, this figure said he's going to come back again. Very interesting. Now, I believe that's pointing towards our time where just before the coming of Christ, the true coming of Christ, Satan is going to impersonate Jesus, pretend to be Jesus, right? Be the world savior. But I believe, and why am I talking about this in the context of World War III? I believe that's going to come at a time of war. He's going to bring an end to this conflict, an end to the war, right? And then declare peace and safety, right? So what am I saying? I'm saying that this escalation, this conflict, this world war that we're about to enter is a setup for the coming of the world's promised deliverer, all the stuff, the false coming of Christ, the false Christ, which is Lucifer, going to be pretending to be Jesus Christ. That's what we're seeing. All right, let's let the video finish and then I'll come back to wrap it up.
Before he disappeared as suddenly as he had come, he paced off a path in the direction of the church.
Siku hiyo wakati mwenyewe aliingia, alisema nimeweka msalaba hapa.
Jesus said, "I have put my garment here at the end of this path, and whoever comes to this place, perhaps with sickness or demons or other problems, should run along this path. When he returns at the end and runs back to Mary, all his problems will vanish, and he will be free."
Sasa wanakuwa free.
All right, guys, so I'm going to stop it right here. All right, so I hope this opened up your eyes in terms of this Maitreya figure, this world. And if you just look up, do the research on Maitreya, you'll see it's very fascinating, the stories associated and connected with Maitreya. But I don't think we should spend too much time studying the false. We should really spend more time studying the true, which is Christ and his second coming. But it's going to be very interesting. So I want to end this video, and we are coming to an end. I want to end this video by summarizing, right, and kind of doing a recap. But I want you to hear it from someone else's point of view. Walter Viv did a really good breakdown of this, and I just wanted to play a short clip where he talks about some of the things we discussed already, but repetition deepens impression, right? And I believe in the counsel of the principle of two witnesses, right? So we don't just get the message once, but we get it twice, and that really strengthens our hold of the truth and what we know to be true. So in this segment, I really want to play a short video where Walter Viv again describes this sequence of events, the prediction of World War I, World War II, World War III by this Satanist, I believe to be a Luciferian, who said he got the vision from the devil and outlines this world's history in terms of major world events and world wars, which is a setup for the coming of this world Luciferian religion, a one world religion, which honors not the true God of heaven, but Satan. All right? Satan pretending to be God. So let's dive into this final video, which I think, like I said, you will find mind-blowing. So we're going to start it right here.
When I did Total Onslaught, I did a lecture called Revolutions, Tyrants and Wars, where we looked at all of these activities that were going on. And we see that the Jesuits were fomenting wars and revolutions, etc. No wonder they were thrown out of virtually every country in the world, right? For a while. Yes. And then there was this interesting letter by Albert Pike, which he wrote to Mazzini. Now, there's a lot of talk about this letter, and many claim that there never was such a letter. But there are too many sources unfortunately for these people, to collaborate. And then it was also apparently in the British Museum, and then it was taken away. Let's just read some of the things that pertain to this issue. So this is the letter by Albert Pike, the 33-degree Freemason, a Grand Master who wrote Morals and Dogma. And it states, the First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the Tsars in Russia and making that country a fortress of atheistic communism. The divergences caused by the Agentur, agents of the Illuminati, between the British and German empires will be used to foment this war, and at the end of the war, communism will be built and used to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken religions. Now, Martin, let's just reflect. Did that happen?
Yes, but to a T.
To a T, right? And the Illuminati, who founded them? Wasn't it Adam Weishaupt?
A Jesuit.
Wasn't he a Jesuit?
Mm-hmm.
They say it was an ex-Jesuit, but not an ex-Jesuit, he's a dead Jesuit.
Yes.
So they like to put the Jesuits in a position where they go underground, apparently rogue,
Against their own institution.
and then eventually they turn them into heroes. Do we have another example? Yes, we do.
Yes.
What about Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, the man who was responsible for the Piltdown hoax, the evolutionary one?
Yeah.
The one who was the philosophical father of the United Nations. He was a guru there, as it were. He was almost worshipped for his philosophies. But he was so radical that the church distanced themselves from him. But after his death, and in recent times, they wrote articles glorifying him. So Martin, he did a good job. He brought mysticism into the United Nations. And then you had these organizations such as the Temple of Understanding and all of these, and these organizations that use the writings of Blavatsky and Alice A. Bailey and their agendas for 2025, the externalization of the hierarchy. Why are these official United Nations organizations?
Because it's part of an agenda.
It's part of an agenda. And who is always the father behind it? It's a Jesuit. It's a Jesuit. It's a Jesuit agenda. And did they break down religion?
Yes. Especially with the First World War in Russia.
Correct. And Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, with the Piltdown hoax, was pushing the agenda of evolution. And Karl Marx and Lenin and all of these people were probably controlled by the same powers and put these ideas into the world. And they were occult because they belonged to organizations like the Ghostly Guild, where they communicated with demons. All right, so basically, this actually happened.
That's it. Exactly like it was, well, let's say prophesied by them, by the occult.
Yes, because Satan also has a counter-prophecy, and he must give it enough credence so that people will actually believe it. And I'm afraid a great portion of the evangelical world has swallowed this bait, hook, line, and sinker. They're on the road of dispensationalism. They're waiting for an antichrist in the future. Excuse me, do they remember their roots, where they come from? Do they study the issues as to why the papacy is the Antichrist, or are they sitting in ecumenical councils?
They're all in ecumenical councils.
Okay. The Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so that Nazism is destroyed and that the political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom which would be then restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm.
All right, guys, so just a quick comment here. Remember, this is written in the 1870s, way before World War I and World War II, right? So this is written in the 1870s, which is almost 50 years before it happened, roughly 30, 40 years. So what am I saying? Unless this man is a prophet, right, which we know he's not, history as we know it was planned and orchestrated by the powers that be because they want to bring out a desired end. Remember at the beginning of the video, I explained the Hegelian dialectic? They bring about two opposing forces in order to bring about a third outcome. When that third outcome is created, then they repeat that same process again in order to bring out another outcome, right? That's just how it is. That's how history has been orchestrated. And I'm an avid student of history, right? I love to say I'm a historian because, well, especially when I studied European history, you see this pattern over and over and over again, guys. It's written all throughout human history because it's not coincidence, right? You may say, yes, you're a conspiracy theorist, but yes, the truth is that a lot of these events are planned because the men or the women behind it want to bring out about a desired result. Okay, we're almost done, and I'm going to wrap it up.
Did this happen, Martin?
Exactly like that.
And one wonders why the nations that were apparently fighting against Nazism put up naval blockades to make sure that the Jews that came out of this cataclysmic situation actually ended up in Palestine.
Yeah, everything. You see, so actually, this is not prophetic. This is just planned.
This is planned. Yes, you can plan prophecy. But this has nothing to do with biblical prophecy.
No.
And then there was to be a Third World War. And the Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agentur of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arab world, and political Zionism, the State of Israel, mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on the issues, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, and spiritual and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilist, wrote Pike, and the atheist, and we shall provide a formidable social cataclysm which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and the most bloody turmoil. Luciferians don't want atheism. They are using it as a tool.
Tool, exactly.
Because they want to worship Lucifer directly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then everywhere the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world's minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude, disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal but without knowing where to render adoration, will receive the true light of the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. Martin, this is a diabolical Luciferian plan. Now, many people believed that with Desert Storm, some of this was going into fulfillment, but now there's another excitement happening in the Middle East, isn't there?
Yeah. And it's creating what he's mentioned here, people standing behind the one and the other from right across the world.
Right. Now, is there already a division that has been brought about, and talk of nuclear war, for example, between Russia and the West?
Yes.
Between China and the West? Mm-hmm. So this has also been fermented in the background. So nations have actually chosen sides. Mm-hmm. Now you have the BRICS nations on the one side.
All right, guys. So we're gonna stop here and then we're gonna end this video here. So I just wanted to replay this segment because Walter Viff is re-emphasizing what we went over initially, that according to Pike, was a 33-degree Freemason, there's going to be 3 world wars. And he said this in the year 1871 before World War One and World War Two. And World War One and World War Two played out exactly how he said it would, right? In terms of the opposing factions and the result of the war, which is important because everything is done for a purpose, for a reason, because they want to bring out a certain result. And we saw, as a result of World War One, we saw communism growing in strength, and we have the weakening of religion, right? And by the way, communism is still around. You know, communist China is still there. Russia, in many cases, in some regards, is still a communist country, right? And then World War Two came as a result of that. Then you have Nazi Germany, the Nazism, versus political Zionism, which is basically another word for the West, which is the people who want to set up Israel as a state in Palestine, right, going against each other. And as a result of that, what we see happening as a result of World War II, Nazism, Hitler was defeated. Then what happened? Because we know Hitler, you know, killed so many Jews, millions of Jews, right? But what happened as a result of World War II? Israel was set up in the Middle East as a nation, right, in the same territory as Palestine, which we know to be the former name of the Palestinians was the Philistines, right, in the Bible. And again, that is the result, because as a result of that, what's going to happen is this is a setup for the Third World War, which is happening right now. I believe we're in the beginning stages of World War III, where the political Zionists, right, or the state of Israel, will go against the Islamic countries, and then the West, like the US, will take sides. Russia will take a side. China will take a side. Then we are about to enter World War III. And according to Pike, what he believes this is going to accomplish is the destruction of atheism, which is communism, right? And also Christianity, but I don't think it's Christianity as we know it. He's talking about a different type of Christianity. And as a result of that, what he sees happening is that there's going to be the Luciferian doctrine, the Luciferian religion is going to come into the forefront. And as I showed you in the video before, this being called Maitreya, this world leader, world healer, is going all over the world, appearing to different people in different times. And I believe that this is the devil, this is Satan as appearing as an angel of light, appearing to be the one to solve the world's problems. He's then going to come forward as a result of World War III to end this crisis, right? He's going to come forward and then he's going to bring the solution, which is the synthesis. He's going to bring the solution to the world. And then he's going to point people to a true Sabbath, as he calls it, where they've changed the law. And to honor him, we need to honor God's true Sabbath, which is Sunday, Sunday legislation, Sunday circuitness, which we know as a national Sunday law, which is the mark of the beast. And then that is going to result in the mark of the beast crisis, right? Which is the final test for this world. As a result of that, very soon after, you have the close of probation, because the mark of the beast crisis comes before the close of probation, right? It's the final test. People will choose whether they want to accept Christ or not, whether they want to receive the devil's mark, which is in their hand or in their forehead. Then probation ends. Then you have the 7 last plagues. Then you have the coming of Jesus, the true coming of Jesus, the true Christ, the Messiah. Friends, we are so close. We are so close to the coming of Christ. And I hope you got this message and it was a blessing to you. Hope it didn't confuse you. Would love to hear your comments or your questions. If you have any, let me know. But again, like I said, this is not a Bible study. I'm just going 100 miles an hour, but I'm presenting the truth to you and showing you events in this world as it relates to Bible prophecy. Again, the Bible does not predict World War I, World War II, World War III. It doesn't. But it does say that there'll be wars and rumors of wars. And the important thing as believers, we need to keep our eyes focused on the true and the most important events, which is what we have as revealed in the Bible. Revelation chapter 13, the 2 beasts are the beast coming out of the sea, which is the Roman Catholic Church or the papacy system, and also the beast coming out of the earth, which is the lamb-like beast, which is the United States in Bible prophecy. These are the 2 powers that will bring about the persecution of God's people in the end times, the mark of the beast crisis. Everything else is a way of setting this up. This war happening right now is a setup, right? But we're heading towards the end. Jesus is coming soon. I pray to God that you are saved and you have a loving relationship with Him, because that is most important. Knowing things, knowledge, facts does not save us. What saves us is a loving relationship with Christ. So I want to keep this video short. Hope you're blessed by this video, and I will talk to you next time. Take care. God bless you, and bye for now.